63-53.
Now back to Cofield Company on ESPN Las Vegas.
All right, we continue talking about Geno Smith, new quarterback here in Las Vegas with the Raiders. We got the Seattle side of things. Now we have to get the Raiders insider side of things with Paul Gutierrez, up with Willie and Cofield. What's going on, my friend?
What's up, guys? How you guys been doing?
We're pretty good. I'm very perplexed right now, though, on what has just happened the last couple of days. Basically, Sam Darnold being chosen over Geno Smith. Geno Smith, I think, choosing the Raiders over the Seahawks. So we're going to try to get some clarity on this. But I'll tell you what, one of the first things I was kind of blown away by on Geno Smith was the media and, some people closely tied to the Raiders just gushing over the dude. Numbers like Geno Smith, 28 deep passing touchdowns since 2022, first among quarterbacks. Geno Smith, first in quarterback accuracy the last 4 years. Harry Ruiz, Geno Smith's 27 regular season wins since 2022 are only surpassed by Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Goff, and Jackson. Do the Raiders just get a guy coming into his prime who's already like a top 7 quarterback in the NFL?
No. You're talking about a guy that seemed like this is what he was supposed to be doing when he was first drafted, right? Almost a decade ago. So whether he's coming into his prime or not, you're talking about a guy that was actually the NFL's comeback player of the year a couple of years ago. He's one of those guys that he wins. And I heard somebody describe him on Friday as all this guy does is win, he wins. But if you look at his career numbers and the way that it started, it didn't start off really well for him at all in New York. Remember, there were some things that happened with him there. And he has a career losing record as a starting quarterback. And there's many people, many of them Derek Carr fans, that say that a win-loss record is not a quarterback stat. But it is what it is. So they got a guy that the head coach is very familiar with. And there's something to be said about that. Now, as the last time we talked, I had mentioned that the first name that was mentioned to me was Sam Darnold as somebody to look at for them to be interested in. No doubt they were interested in him. But I was told that like the first week after they got this coaching staff in place. So Geno Smith became another name of somebody to keep an eye on, but you're going to have to give up something to go get him. So they essentially gave up Devontae Adams to get him. So that's the pick they got from the Jets. That's the pick they're going to send to Seattle for him. And at the end of the day, you just say, okay, well, what's more important, a receiver who wasn't happy or a quarterback who the coach coming in is very happy and very familiar with? So again, it's March 10th. This thing doesn't even become official for another 48 hours or so. So Raider fans, they finally should be happy that for the first time since Derek Carr took his ball and went home, they have a legitimate quarterback one ready to roll with a coaching staff that is very familiar with him.
So with that, Paul, in terms of the relationship with Pete Carroll, you have a relationship with Pete Carroll. You know him personally. How is a relationship for a quarterback that had struggles through the first X amount of years of his career and then flourished under Carroll? How is he personally, and why should Geno be so comfortable with him?
You just look at it. You look at all of his stats. You look at all of his numbers and where his career. And that's the thing. I hesitate to say Geno Smith had a career resurgence, because to have a resurgence, you have to have had some sort of a body of work in the past. He really didn't. I mean, it was kind of like, when is this guy who's coming out of West Virginia? A lot of people were really excited about him and up on him, and it just didn't happen. Was that because of the situation was wrong? Because the lights were too bright in New York? What was it? There's a connection with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, I refer to him. I'm not the one that invented it, obviously, but he's Uncle Pete. He's like your favorite uncle. There's just a familiarity with him when you talk with him, when you shoot the breeze with him, when you're watching him or you're playing pickup ball with him. I never did that, but when I was covering USC basketball back in the early 2000s, and he had just gotten to USC, he was in there playing pickup ball with anybody that wanted to suit up with him, shirts and skins. So there's just this familiarity that he has in this relationship that he brokers. And the fact that Geno Smith's career took off under him in Seattle, that's really the only tangible evidence you need to see in terms of how does that personal relationship translate onto the field professionally.
Okay, next step in this is an extension. Now, I'm reading Bob Condotta, who is in the Seattle area. He's been there a long time. He said that Geno had a good offer from the Seahawks to the tune of like 40 to 45 mil on the table, maybe for a couple more years. Are the Raiders going to extend him at that or even longer? They're going to give him 3 or 4 years at that kind of money?
Again, and that's one of the things that we don't know yet. We'll see exactly what comes to fruition when this thing becomes official. But that's the other part of this, guys, right? Is that it's obvious that he's on the other side of 30. He's And this is how I described Pete Carroll, too, when they hired him. He may not be Mr. Right, but he's Mr. Right now. And Geno Smith is not Mr. Right, but he's Mr. Right now because they need that legitimate QB1 that's been in the league, knows how to win some games, and can be that bridge to go forward. That's why when we talked last, guys, we talked about kind of what is the plan here, where should they be checking boxes, and as I said, and I kind of theorized, was you got to figure out in free agency the quarterback situation. Are you going to go get somebody like a Darnold, who's more than a bridge guy? Geno's the prototypical bridge guy. And then you also got to figure out Max Crosby on defense because you have your entire starting defense essentially is hitting free agency. And we saw what happened today, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute here. But everything's kind of going according to plan, so to speak, in terms of things that they're going to have to address. Fans aren't going to like it. Fans always overreact on day one of free agency. But you saw what the Eagles did. They essentially got guys on day one of free agency last year that helped them win the Super Bowl. So, it's real interesting just to kind of watch how this whole thing kind of comes together.
Fast forward to next month. Shedeur Sanders still available. You take him at 6?
Oof. Yeah. That again, what do his workouts look like? What does Tom Brady have to say? What have they lost or what have they signed in free agency on the defensive side of the ball? Do they, there's so many questions to kind of get there. If they love Shedeur Sanders, go get him. Make him your guy with the understanding that, hey, this guy's not playing here for a year or two now with the money you just gave Geno. Or do they get a defensive playmaker there, which is probably what they're going to need after what happened today and losing 3 of their top playmakers on defense anyways.
Yep.
And then Jackson Dart and then the quarterback from Ohio State who is, obviously very familiar with the new Raiders offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly. He could be there in the second or third round too. So Jackson Dart and the Ohio State quarterback, his name escapes me in a second. Those are some guys to look at later in the draft. But if they really love Shedeur and Tom Brady wants him and everybody else signs off on everything else, boom, go get your guy.
I hadn't seen the update on Merrick, and we'll get to who they lost. But yeah, 51 mil over 3 years. So Hobbs out the door, Spillane out the door as well. Just your opinion on what Seattle did here, sending Geno Smith for a third and then choosing Darnold, younger but less reliable, over him. Do you like the Darnold signing? And frankly, if the Raiders could have not traded a pick and just made a run at Darnold, would you rather see the Raiders have Darnold? Because clearly Seattle favored Darnold over Geno.
Only if you see Darnold as the guy going forward. If you don't see him as your long-term answer, no, because he was going to be a heck of a lot more expensive. Despite, and we don't know that yet, right? I mean, until everything, the contracts come in and everything.
I know.
But that's what I'm saying is that he's so much younger than Geno. And if you've got a plan and you really want to go draft somebody else, but no, going the Geno route was the better route there. So, it's not a question of do you really like it. It's just trying to understand, well, what's the Raiders' mindset under this new regime of Tom Brady, Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, of John Spivak. It's amazing. It makes you get whiplash just trying to keep up with who's making the calls and who's calling the shots here. So, it just kind of depends upon, did you see him, Sam Darnold, as the guy? And if you didn't, well, then you needed to get a bridge guy instead.
Paul Gutierrez and Cofield Company, Raiders Insider. Okay, biggest loss. We mentioned Spillane, Merrig, and also Nate Hobbs. What's the biggest loss? Who's going to be the hardest guy to replace for the Raiders?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's Spillane. And simply for this reason. And because, and I tweeted this out a little bit ago, is that he kind of had the feeling that Merrig was going to have a market and he was going to go if he got a bag, and he did. Hobbs, you just got the sense down the end of the season last year, down the stretch with the injury that was nagging, he couldn't get back on the field. But if he got any type of offer from the Raiders, it was going to be a little bit lower. Spillane was the guy that was kind of the diamond in the rough that they signed. When they signed him up from the Steelers as a free agent, he was dirt cheap, really, because he hadn't really been an everyday starter. And then all he became was pretty much, I saw it like this. If Max Crosby was the heart of the defense and the face of the defense, then Spillane, who very rarely came off the field anyway, was the heart and soul of it. And when you throw in the fact that the Raiders brought back Patrick Graham, that's his signal caller. That's the quarterback of the defense out there that they're losing too. So for that simple reason, if they had brought in a new defensive coordinator, or if he knew that Pete Carroll was going to totally be the play caller on defense, okay, then you kind of got the sense, okay, well, then when's Bobby Wagner getting here, right? When Bobby Wagner went to Washington, okay, but they're going to make a run and try to keep scoring because that's some continuity on defense with the defensive coordinator. Not so much. So that to me is why he's the biggest loss on the defensive side of the ball.
Jeremy Chin in as a safety. I wonder if inside the Raiders headquarters, the market got a little out of control because there were whispers last week about, guys with ties to Pete Carroll and Spytech, like Carlton Davis and DJ Reed. They'd like to make a run at those guys, and they both signed lucrative deals.
Yeah. But again, who's making the call? And that was the thing with kind of lost in all this, which was the first big move to be made. Now you adjust to it. Is Max Crosby getting the big extension? Right? It keeps him in the building. And it's true. The reports are out there, and any reporter will say, oh, well, I heard the same thing. Literally, that Friday morning, I had also heard that I was told, and again, by a second-hand, third-hand source, that those conversations between the Seahawks and the Raiders started with the Seahawks reaching out to the Raiders for Max Crosby.
Yep.
And the package would have been Geno and why not blanking on the receiver's name? Metcalf. Yeah. So that would have been interesting, and then the Raiders shut that down. So they were all in on Max. So now you know that that's the guy. So now everything kind of follows suit from there.
Swapping Andre James out and JPJ, who'd gotten a look at center. JPJ will be the center now. Do you like that?
I do, but I also want to Parham. If they like Parham at center more. That way that JPJ could stay out of guard. That's going to be something to watch during the offseason. Who's getting the first team reps at center. Okay. JPJ seems like he's got more of the mentality to be there in terms of, I'm not saying that Parham doesn't, but JPJ really kind of embraced that role. But remember, a couple of years ago, Parham's also played the role. So it's not necessarily a matter of who's better at the position so much as who fits better along this reimagined offensive line, because they're going to have to redo this offensive line, obviously.
And then we're overlooking the other area, which we talked about a bunch before all this came together with free agents, that, hey, the Eagles just won because of, in large part because of their defensive line. Now they lose a guy in Milton Williams to the Patriots, but D-line is where it's at. The Chiefs make a lot of hay, consistency because of the D-line. What do you think of the deal that they got for Butler and then Kuntz on a one-year deal?
Love it. Absolutely love it. Butler is really underrated to me and understated for the things that he does, especially as a pass rushing defensive tackle that can really collapse the pocket. He got a full season from a healthy Christian Wilkins, which is, he's obviously getting paid. Everybody forgets about Christian Wilkins because he missed more than half the season last year. You got those two guys in the middle, and then you got a healthy Kuntz on the outside to pair up with Max Crosby again. Okay, you win that back, and you see what happens. And you still got Tyree Wilkins, who's kind of, still showed many flashes last year. And you want to see more than just flashes from a guy who was taken so high in the draft, the year prior. But they've got some guys. I want to see what they do with Chason because he really impressed a lot down the stretch too, and he was forced into action as a starting edge rusher when Max Crosby went out. So I do like what they did on the defensive line, and but at the same point, okay, so now who your linebacker is going to be? Because Spillane is gone, obviously, and Devon Diablo is hitting free agency. Slot corner, Nate Hobbs, he's gone. So it's going to be really interesting. And in the back end, you got Chin, you got Palomao. So are they done there? I don't think so. But, they got some guys they drafted a couple of years ago for depth as well.
Speaking with Raiders insider Paul Gutierrez. Paul, on the local front, your alma mater, UNLV, Dan Mullen brings aboard longtime NFL coordinator Paul Gunther. You and I were sitting next to each other in 2020 in an empty stadium when the word came down that John Gruden had to let his good friend go. What do you think about UNLV bringing him aboard?
Love it. Again, great opportunity for him. He's a character, but he's also a guy that would relate to the college scene, I think. And that's the good thing. I mean, he's been around the NFL forever. So for UNLV to bring him aboard as the associate head coach, had a lot of conversations with Gunther over the years. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in there. But if nothing else, it just shows that UNLV football is taking itself super serious. And they want, it's something that they can hang their hat on when they're bringing in recruits and not only show them a world-class stadium, but say, hey, you guys want to get to the league? We got a coach here on staff who's in the league for a long time, calling plays on defense. So, this is going to help you too. So if nothing else, it's a great recruiting pitch to bring guys in beyond what Mullen has on his resume being in the SEC for all those years. So with Gunther, really interesting, really excited to see exactly what he brings to the alma mater.
All right, before we let you go, I got to ask you now, are you up in the Bay Area or did you go down to Barstow?
We're doing both. So I know where you're going to go with this. Willie.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in the Bay Area now. I'm in the Bay Area right now.
You've been breaking boards?
Compression sock.
Have you been breaking boards? Because I received a picture from a source of a bruised up foot. Now, we know that you're a 25th degree black belt. Have you been breaking boards at your age?
I have not fourth degree black belt. I'll be 55 years old this coming weekend. But what happened was, and here's the thing, Willie and I here, see, we had a class, when Willie and I first met, we had a class with the late, great Charlie Zobel on campus at UNLV in Wright Hall. And I was actually in Vegas Thursday night because I was flying in to go to my dad's martial arts tournament in Barstow. And I went on campus to pick up my son, Zach, for dinner Thursday night. And I'm walking by Wright Hall and I get distracted. I look at my phone for half a second and I miss a step. And there's this one weird, awkward step right outside of Wright Hall. Heard the crunch, jumped around for a little bit, looked like a cartoon, sat down and looked at it, and my ankle was swollen. So I had a grapefruit inside of it. I'm like, you know what? Even at this age, man, you don't bounce back. Because I did it when we were in college playing flag football.
Yeah, well,
this thing was different.
When we were missing steps outside that classroom, it was because we were looking at co-eds.
True. This is different.
Oh,
now I'm looking at my phone.
So now I got a foot. This is what I have to look forward to at 55?
Just watch for you. Well, that's the thing. If you're looking forward and not looking at your phone, you should be good. So again, this is one of those things from, you've got to be kidding me. Because I did have a fleeting thought of competing in the tournament, coming out of retirement at 54, 55, and going out there and seeing what I still had left in the tank. And when that happened, I said, nope, that's not happening this year.
I mean, you still have your hands. Can't you like break some boards or like a block of ice with your hands?
Well, I could barely walk.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess you need a little. I guess you need a little base.
Can't put pressure on that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll leave Derek Carr comments for next week's conversation if we can hook him next week. Okay. So Derek is all safe. He's got all his money. He got all the money he wanted in New Orleans. Man, I'm bummed out for you. You got your birthday coming up and your foot's all jacked up. That sucks.
Yeah, and really, if you think about it, Willie could be credited for saving Derek a couple years ago, I guess, so that Derek could get paid, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
he did.
I blame and I credit Willie.
Which could have been another bruised foot of yours if it went south.
No, I'm not that crazy, but yes.
All right, Paul, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you, buddy.
All right, gentlemen, take care.
Life is the worst at this age. He looked down at his phone and jacks up his foot.
Stepping off a foot, missed the step.
I know.
You got to pay attention.
Just peril around every friggin' corner.
It's one of those. That is one of those where no matter, like Steve.
Yes.
How many you cover basketball?
Yes.
If you haven't seen it like it, but you hear that somebody rolled an ankle or they came down, I don't want to watch replays of rolled ankles on the basketball court.
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, no.
They had one the other. Oh, the one on what Lakers Knicks with Jalen Brunson.
Just thinking about it.
I finally watched it, but I looked down like 8 times. I'm like, I don't want to see this, and then it was just complete El Foldo of the ankle.
No, it's nails on chalkboard for me. I do not. I just thinking about it. I don't want to see it.
Let your voice be heard by texting the Finley Kia